Are you ready to join me in transforming fear to freedom? That's the objective of the show. Are you ready to explore with me and my guests? Are you ready to get into the deep and play? This is where it's at, and that's what it's all about. No medical advice here. Use discernment and decide for yourself if the information is right for you. All views and opinions expressed on this show belong to the individual and are not necessarily shared with the producer of the show. Want more details? Go to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com. Now let's get real and have some fun. Who are we going to explore with today? Come on with me and let's get into the deep. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Get Real, Chatting with Catherine. I'm the host and producer of the series of shows, Catherine Whalen Costin. It's always a pleasure to be chatting with you, to be bringing my guests to you to explore, so you can explore in the privacy of your own home what we are talking about, which exploring higher visions is always what I'm talking about, no matter what the subject matter, to be able to look at things in a different way maybe and get different people's points of view. Recently I've been chatting about past lives, how they impact us, quantum parallel realities, and this energy series that we're in, this cycle of energy that's been happening from the March 2015 spring equinox to April 4th, which is Easter, and in between that, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, and other planetary shifts, solar flares, and so forth. So we are going to explore all of this and so much more with Shelly Dressel today on Let's Get Real Chatting with Catherine. You can visit goddesslight.net, which is Shelly's website, to get more information on how to work with her privately, to have her speak, to get her free teleconference information that she does twice a month. She has meditation CDs, she has classes, she teaches past life classes, and so much more. We have done numerous shows with Shelly, and we've talked about how she came to her gifts. All of that are on the website, lgrcc.com, where you can get all of the current shows, the previous shows, learn about people, the blog, as well as connect with me on social media. There's a new one, the link isn't there yet, but it's MeWe, and I'm on there, as well as the Clarity Whisperer, which is working with me privately, exploring things that are going on in your life and me tapping into my clarity intuition. So that's there as well. And I also have on the Facebook, I have Facebook for the show, and I have Facebook for the Clarity Whisperer, Making Friends with Death. So it's called Catherine Clarity Whisperer, and then Making Friends with Death is kind of the subtitle for that page. And it's just where I post regularly about thoughts about life and death, about making the most of this experience. So I just wanted to let you know some of those things are available. I'm still intending to expand into an Exquisite World global network of shows where we're going to feature various people in different topics that you're interested in, and try to bring that to you. I'm still looking for those little pieces to tweak it to, maybe some funding, some more sponsors, the right team, the right connection, the right chemistry to make it all work. So I know when the time is exactly right, it's going to happen. But if you're interested in that and thinking you might have something to offer, please contact me at the website, lgrcc.com. Sponsor, contact information, all those tabs are on the website. So I look forward to connecting more with you, and to you sharing our information and subscribing to the YouTube channel. It really can be an exquisite world. It's just that we sometimes have forgotten, or we don't have the tools, and that's what I'm hoping to bring more and more to you. So we're going to get into this conversation today with Shelly Dressel of goddesslight.net right now on Let's Get Real Chatting with Catherine. Welcome back to Let's Get Real Chatting with Catherine with Shelly Dressel. Thanks for joining me, Shelly. It's always a treat. We never know what's going to happen, and it's always fun.
Well, thank you, Catherine, for having me. As always, it's just a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you. And I agree. We may have our topics in tension, but who knows where we'll go today.
I know, and that's what makes the adventure the exploration so much fun. And as I've been really aware. I've been really aware of the energy since January of this year, 2015. I mean, They said it was going to be an awesome year, and like, whew, we're here. We're in March, 25th and 2015. So we have this equinox, which had big energy. Then there's still solar flare stuff going on. We've got a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse, and who knows what else going on. And I'm just hearing this energy is super powerful and can be super empowering, super supportive for us to move into our authentic selves, which we did a show on previously. So I thought, well, what are you picking up, Shelly? I know you do, your teleconferences. You've been talking about different energies, and I've told people, to go to your website and check that out if they want all the links to your information. But what are you getting from, like, what is really happening here?
So, Catherine, there are many things that are happening in our world right now. From the time that humanity has been upon the world, there's always been a lot of stuff happening. But as you get into the higher vibrations, there is less lag time between your intention and receiving what you are doing. So in the lighter vibrations, one of the ways to think about it is that if you think about like you're going through a fog or you're going through a very dense, like a vapor type thing, and you have to kind of push yourself to go through it, you could consider that to be like, say, third or fourth dimensional energies. And then the higher the vibration, the more transparent the energies become. And the more transparent the energies become, the less resistance there is between that. So that's why it's really important for people to realize that your thoughts create your reality. And it does so because you're broadcasting out to the world, to the universe, to the people around you that this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I want. And you may not always realize that it's not just the conscious thoughts you have, but it's all the unconscious thoughts in the back of your mind. And so there is less, or shall I say, less of a discrepancy, but it's more noticeable that those things that you're not aware of are having a greater impact upon you. Because if you were like that, thinking about that, kind of pushing through that heavy, dense energy, then the thoughts that you were unconscious of, it didn't really matter because your focus was where your focus was. But now this is, to me, one of the biggest changes that's taking place in this year. And that's why it's so important for people to begin to be very clear about what they do want to have in their life. And if you're ambivalent about something, or if you say for example, I'd like to win the lottery and have $1 million, then you might be saying that, but in your unconscious mind, you're saying, am I worthy to have $1 million? What will I do with $1 million if I won it? I don't win anything, so how am I going to win $1 million? And this is just kind of the description of you're thinking one thing, but your unconscious is doing another. And you can hear the discrepancy between the two. So when you get into these lighter vibrations, it's even more evident if there's a discrepancy between what you're unconsciously thinking, feeling, and expressing versus what you're consciously thinking, feeling, and expressing. And I think that's part of what you were just talking about, is that with these solar flares, with the equinox, with all these, it's just like a big bolus of energy that's saying, here you go, be very clear. And if you're not, this is why you might be finding problems in your life, because the underlying, whether, I hate to use the word issues, but if people have issues or problems or there are things that they're not being honest with themselves about, it's becoming more evident.
Yes, and it feels like, and I know at the beginning of January, we were kind of under the impression that this energy would be supporting, truth and all the stuff that was kind of hidden, because there's more light on the planet. All the stuff that was hidden and that we didn't know about would come out, and that is clear. I mean, I'm not a big news follower anymore because I do find it's like feeding the fear, feeding constant fear, like the world is a scary place. When I don't feel that way myself, I don't feel like it is a scary place. I feel like it's an awesome place, a place to discover and to learn. And yes, there's challenges, but there's also, the fun of it. The discoveries are constant. It means every day. And so when this period of energy, it can, if I'm getting this right, what you're saying, it's like
it can support you and propel you in your thoughts even faster because it's lighter energy. But if you got a subconscious program that is in the I know there's no negative really either, but if things you don't want is really what's running the show, your sense of self-worth and whatever, that's kind of be pushed up in your face, isn't it? So like you can really see your stuff now. Right.
And it's, whenever I talk about things like this, I'll hear people say to me sometimes, well, that they feel the angels, or they feel that I'm talking to them and that I'm accusing them of not being real with themselves or not being honest. And it's not that we're accusing anything, and it's not that anybody else is either. It's just simply that it is, the more that people are living in the now moment, the more you need to be aware of what is the now moment. And then you need to be aware of how you are having an effect upon it, because most everyone will have, like going back to the $1 million. So I want to win $1 million, and I'm going to buy my lottery ticket, and I'm going to flow the energy, and I'm going to be open to. And maybe there's a niggling back there that says, I've never won it before, because you haven't. Then that's no big deal. But if it's a stronger energy from what you're unconscious of versus a stronger energy than what you're conscious of, that's where the discrepancy comes in.
And I agree. It's not about accusing anyone of anything. It's about, we are at a time of becoming more aware of how many other influences we've allowed in our lives, not consciously. I just recently, and I know you did some channels, and we even did a show about the DNA and how that is changing. So some of the stuff, like you're saying, I want to win the lottery, and you're conscious of that, but you got this program running and you don't realize it's right in your DNA, that the idea of self-worth being so low, or nobody in our family ever gets rich. Nobody in our family ever has enough money. That's just how it is for us. We're the people on the wrong side of the tracks. You hear those are programs, and you might even not have believed it really, but if it's in the family, that's been my experience. The family stories, so to speak, it gets told over and over. It's in their DNA, passed on to you. It's in your DNA, blah, blah, blah. So when you say, of course we're not accusing anybody. Most of us don't realize we've been on this planet so many times now that in different, families and what have you, we're bound to have stuff that's sort of, but what I'm feeling is that the energy is supporting us to be able to look at the stuff if we're willing. And if we're not willing, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, if you're not willing to look at it, then, well, it can go either way. I was just re-listening to a group channel I did where the angels were talking about people and celebrating their life, and how they would tap into some people saying, well, what have I got to celebrate? Life is always a struggle. I just feel like I'm never getting ahead. So again, going back to those programming, and what the angel said at that time, and what I've said and this is what I actually practice in my own life, is that certainly there are things that are going to come up, and certainly there are going to be times when it feels as if life is against you, or that you're struggling with life. But are you going to stay and bask in that energy as the victim? Or are you going to acknowledge that, hey, I've had this programming, or hey, I've had this experience, but I'm going to make some changes here and I'm going to move forward. And that's all it takes to release it. You don't need to go into years of therapy. You don't need to go into a big, deep, intense transformation unless you've got an ego or personality that says it needs hard work, it needs this. Because what I've seen happen to people is that we'll work with them, we'll help them to release an energy, they'll make a transformation in their life, and then their ego or their personality says, no, don't forget, we are afraid of this. And so we might have cleared it out, but then you as the person will bring it back on. And again, not intentionally, but this is this is all the underlying baggage or background music that can be going on.
Yeah.
So again,
and that thing, too easy, Oh, yeah. That was too easy. Or we have so many sayings, too good to be true. Well, why? Why is good not true? Like, these are little games, word games, but they do play in how we see things. And I really get that. And I had that recently. Awareness of, like, if you know, just looking at my life, I would say my life has been hard. As a, you know, I've had lots of challenges in my life. But I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, but life is meant to be easy. We're not meant to struggle. We're not, like, I don't buy that. And I know I did buy it. I bought it previously. That, you know, anything worthwhile, you had to work hard, you had to earn everything, and, you know, all of that stuff. But then I had this bigger awareness going, no, actually, it was hard because you believed it was going to be hard, and you worked your butt off because you thought it meant something. Only thing that had any value was that. And even my own sense of valuing myself felt like that. It was like, you know, you're just never going to get there because you can't work hard enough. And it's absurd because now, it challenged me. And that's what I felt about this energy. It really challenged me to say, wait a sec. Like, you look at a bird, and the bird is not saying, oh, I'm here, I'm going to work my until I die, you know, well, I hope I get the pension. You know, hey, the bird knows, right? He's here. If you're here on the planet, you have a right to be here. You have a right to have your needs met. It's a different mentality. But even though you might open to the new, that other program is still programmed. And if you're not aware of it, that's the thing. To me, it feels like this is you get the awareness, and the energy is supporting you to flip your switch. Am I right?
Right. I think that's very true. And one of the things that occurred to me a couple of weeks ago was, look at all the various shows that you see on TV, because I'm into The Voice and what's that, American Idol, and those different singing shows. But not even just those, everything else that you do. You hear people talking about, oh, it was fun. I had a really good time with that. I really enjoyed myself. This is one of the ways when people are enjoying themselves, they're enjoying their lives, it's a lot of fun. You're in the flow of your divinity. You don't need to go and be very spiritual and think about every minute and analyze every minute. You just need to be in the flow of what feels good to you. So all of those people are out there. Maybe they're conscious, maybe they're unconscious. It doesn't really matter. I mean, of the energies. But they are listening to something inside of themselves that says, I want to have fun with what I'm doing. And when I'm having fun doing it, then I know I'm going to be big, and I know I'm going to prosper in it. So to me, that's just one of those, that's just across the board. And so you see it in all sorts of different places. And that's one of the ways that people are integrating being in this new energy and being in the higher vibrations without really thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah, and anything can be fun. Even though,
exactly.
You know, there's still tasks to do. There's still things that, you know, everyday life that we call it work. But our perception of work is where we kind of missed it, you know. We've used the word work to describe something unpleasant. And, you know, when you're doing something creative, you're still, you know, when you're baking bread, there's a physical labor involved, but if you enjoy it, it's awesome. If you don't enjoy it, it's work.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you, oh man, I'm going to try to make this bread. I hate making bread, blah, 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 you know, and it's not going to taste good. So it sounds like to me that being in joy, being in your fun, it is what's going to take us to that place where we really want to go. Like if you really, shift how you think about it. But the other thing that came up, and I know we want to talk about this today, so if this feels about right, is the past life experience. Okay, so I know Shelly does a lot of group sessions on past life, like classes, and I've taken one and I really enjoyed it. And I know that this is my understanding, I should say, we have many lifetimes, many, and some of them happening at the same time, and some of them happening, you know, in different dimensions and all that kind of stuff. But when we're working on, we've already talked about the DNA influence, the family heritage that might influence your life and your beliefs. But what about past lives? What about, we're seeing so many children, especially, that I'm noticing, or at least that's what's in the media, coming to their awareness of fairly recent past lives. Mm-hmm. And they are, it's interesting because it feels like they are remembering it, telling their parents, being believed by the parents, which is key. But also it feels like there's almost a sense of needing to do that, a sense of closure, a sense of, I don't know, one of them solved his own murder. So I can see where that would be, solving that would empower the child in this life. But I'm just wondering, how much do our other lifetimes affect this lifetime, and what can we do about it?
When we start talking about past lives, it's one of those conversations that has many, many different layers. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of give you my perspective of what I see when I work with people, and also some of the things that I talk about in the class. As for the children just in general are more open to multidimensional energies, whether they're looking at their angels, whether they're looking at other dimensions of what's happening right around them, or it's other lifetimes that are coming through. My sense is that exactly what you said, he had to put closure to the other lifetime. Many times these other lifetimes end abruptly. And so they have to go back and put closure to it by acknowledging, he lived, I see you, I remember you. And so that's one reason why it might come through in this lifetime. Another reason is that there might be something in that other lifetime that's going to help you in this lifetime. Meaning that you had an experience, or you were in a particular vibration, or you learned a particular knowledge, and that the reconnecting to that is now going to help you in this lifetime instead of you having to relearn it all again. So there's lots of different reasons why it's important to connect to other lifetimes. I agree with you. There are limitless lifetimes that we've had. Not everybody has lived upon the earth. Many, many people live out in the universe. And when you're living in the universe, you may be in just a pure love energy, meaning a non-physical body. It's just the pure consciousness of you as your divinity. You may be on other planets. And so then you take the information and the knowledge of that and can bring it down into this lifetime. So if you're linking to past lifetimes, you may be accessing information that's from another galaxy or another dimension, or, it's many different things. Another thing that I consider when it comes to past lifetimes is that we've had many, many of them, and there's some that are going on right now, which is what you would call those parallel lifetimes, but not every past lifetime is going on right now. Some of them have been in a different time-space reality, and it's completed, so to speak. You can access these in a couple of different ways. When I'm working with people, I'm linking with them at there's the human self, and then there's the divine self, that your I am presence, and there's a cord that links the two of you together. So we can connect through their divinity, or their higher self is just kind of somewhere in between there. And when you're doing that, basically you're with that one individual, and you're looking at all of the various memories and the experiences. And so through that individual, you can go straight back or straight into those other lifetimes and work with their effect. Another way that you can do it is the Akashic Records. And many, many people have talked about the Akashic Records, and it's something that a lot of people know about. And it's literally like a library that you can go into. And as you go into this library, each one of us have the book of our life. And you can go to the book of your life and open it up and kind of flip through the pages. And some of those pages are this current lifetime, and some of those pages may be other lifetimes.
Cool.
Another thing that people can do, and it's fascinating that I don't you love synchronicity when synchronicity comes up? I taught the past life the class on a Thursday. I worked with someone individually the following Monday, and something I had said in the class got manifested in the reading that I did for that person. It's like, I just love that.
Yeah, I know. And as soon as you have that a little bit of the individual has the awakening, the awareness, it's like you see things that you wouldn't normally see, and you have that sense of I don't know, your eyes are open to things that you weren't open to before because you didn't know. That's what I love about doing the research. I know not everybody's even cares. No, not everybody's really that interested, but it does feel like now, especially at this time, for some reason, the whole thing about past lives has been coming up over and over and over again. And I am aware that, one, I could be just attracting it to myself because I'm curious about it. Or it could be that it's coming up for me to be paying attention to because I did a lot of work recently thinking about past life, my family lineage, all that stuff. And maybe that's why. And it was very helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing that happens that people don't talk about as much is that people can go to that library, the Akashic Records that we talked about, and you might go to, say, some big time in history. And we're talking in a linear fashion because this is what humanity understands. But maybe you go to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or maybe you go to crossing, what is it, the Potomac at Valley Forge, or, one of those big things. And so probably thousands, if not millions of people have gone to the book of that experience and pulled out the book and said, what is it like to be Washington during the Revolutionary War? And so they can tap into the energy of that experience and they can live it themselves and know what it was like to be in that position, but it's not necessarily their full lifetime. So I know this sounds very abstract, but I'll confirm it in just a second. People had said that to me a long time ago, and when I was first learning a lot of these things, and I thought, that's an interesting perception. And since then I've read it, and since then I've seen it for myself. Say, for example, Camelot, and the change that brought along. Is it a myth? Is it a reality? And so many, many people would pull out the Akashic Records about Camelot and say, I want to see if that was real or not. And so they'll tap into that energy and they'll go there and they might experience it and they might even live that life for a number of years. And it's not that particular soul energy, but what it does is it creates a collective consciousness about that experience, and multiple people can tap into it. And that's why people may say, oh, I was at Valley Forge. I remember that. And then you may say, oh, I was too. And you may have millions of people there where in reality there were 100,000 or, So this is one of the ways in which more people can have an understanding of a situation or may want to pull out the records for that lifetime so that it can influence them in this lifetime.
So could you be doing that in your sleep? Like, could you be doing that not conscious? And that's why some people say, gee, I remember that. I must have been there, and not realize that they didn't consciously seek out to go to the Akashic Records, but maybe they're doing it. That's the question. You're curious about something in your daytime, and then in your dream time, you go there and find out more. And then in the morning, you know.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You can do it through the Akashic Records. You can do it through going to like the ET ships or the different places like that. There are places in dimensions where people come to gather to share information and to talk about experiences. So you can go into that and receive that information in many different ways. And so then what I wanted to share with you, the person I worked with is someone who has struggled a lot to be on the earth. And one time I found she was just completely ungrounded, so much so that the lower chakras were almost shut down. And so once we opened them up, she felt a lot more on earth. She's a young soul, what one might call, to the earth plane. She's an old soul. It's just she prefers to live out in the universe. But she came into this lifetime so that she could bring the crystalline vibration with her, so that she could bring that universal light with her, which we have so many children coming in like that, and young adults, many, many people that are born since the 90s, early to mid 90s, came in at this vibration. And the intention was when they came in was that Earth would be XYZ. So she's born, she grew up, she's here, she's living, and she's like, This isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be different. I'm ready to go home. And so anyway, and in working with her, she's much, much happier now. But my point is that when she has gone to get help from people or to look at people, there may be psychics that looked at her and said, oh, did you know you had a lifetime of this, a lifetime of this, a lifetime? And then I'll look at her through the angels, and what she said to me, and this is what came up just last week, she said, Shelly, I don't think those lifetimes really resonate with me. Do you think I really lived those lifetimes? And they said, no, you didn't. You pulled them from the Akashic Records as a means of grounding yourself so that it would help you to feel a part of humanity and that you would help you to feel a part of living on the earth, but you didn't actually live those lives.
Cool.
So a psychic who was looking at it just from the perspective of these lower energies saw them as her past lives. And then the angels and what we're looking at from the universal perspective could see they're connected to her right now. But when she transitions or whenever she no longer needs them, they'll go back into the Akashic Records and they're not a part of her permanent soul.
So it's kind of, when you go to a psychic, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people are tapping into their gifts. And I brought this up before recently, and I think it's important to mention again. We need to discern who we're talking to. We need to discern that we are sovereign beings, humans on this planet. We have a right to be here. We're supposed to be here. It's a free will planet. But sometimes people are just calling in anybody to give them information, anybody who doesn't have a body, basically. And, this was kind of brought to my attention recently because we're talking disclosure, we're talking about the ETs and so forth. And people are just saying, yeah, bring, but we don't want that, because there are elements outside that would prefer to perhaps enslave humans and do things. They're not the ones we want help from. We don't need their help. We don't even want them. We need to invite in what I call from the angelic realm, from the lightest, the highest. That's the kind of people who are welcome here, not the people who have any negative intentions. Same thing as having a house party. You don't just broadcast to the world anybody who wants to show up. I mean, well, sometimes that happens, and that's why you end up with those disasters. But my point is, when you don't know, maybe when you go to somebody, a psychic or whatever, but for everybody who's working with these energies, to be aware of who you're connecting with. And I know, Shelly, you work with high light beings. That's who you work with. So you're going to see things from a different perspective. And what we kind of know, and I know from working with so many people who are in the, light workers, psychics and so forth, is you can tap into the astral realm, like just the lowest out of body beings that are just hovering around, and they don't know anything. They just don't know anything. They're no different than they just don't. And so we have to be aware of where we're getting our information from, so that we can discern whether it works for us. Like, feel into it. I just thought that needed to be said. I don't know why.
Well, I think it does need to be said, and I think it's a very good point to make. And by no means am I criticizing psychics versus channelers versus anything, because there are fabulous people in all different walks of life, and all of the multitudes of different ways that people can receive information are what make it exciting for people. So even in this individual that she was talking about, the key in that situation was that she went looking for some information. The person told her what they were getting in that moment. It didn't resonate with her. So that's when she has the opportunity to say, that doesn't really resonate with me. So am I going to now believe what somebody else told me to believe? Or am I going to go inside and say, maybe there's a reason for that, but I'm not going to let it affect me?
Yeah.
And this is what it means about being in this new energy and about being proactive and aware in your life.
And doing your own discernment. That's the key. It's not to say, and it's not to say that, I mean, this is really important, that people who are, we're all psychic. It just depends on how we've developed our skills. It's like, how we do it and what we're tapping into. But it doesn't mean the person that was doing it was wrong or had any, it just means that, like you say, it didn't resonate with you. And sometimes stuff shows up in our energy field that the person is picking up on, and they don't know why. They're just telling you what they're seeing. And it's up to you to sort of discern whether or not it's yours. Maybe you're carrying someone else's stuff. There could be all kinds of things. But I just think it's important to take back our power. It's no different than we used to give our power away to all the doctors. I'll submit my body to you and you test it up and tell me what I need to do, if it needs oil or gas or, it's just, we need to, I'm not saying that doctors don't have their place too. Everything has its place, but never do my way of being and thinking is never is it right to give away your power. Or never is it, not right, but never is it healthy or good for you to give away your power to anybody.
Well, and that's always the way it's been, but the way that society was looking at people, be it relationships, be it the way that, so often we're taught when we were growing up that, okay, you want to get along with everyone, or to be a good worker, to be a team player, that means that you do what other people say. You don't want to make waves. So again, going back to all that programming, and that doesn't mean that in the new energy or in where we are right now that we don't still want to get along with people, that we don't necessarily want to make waves. But the question is, are we being true to ourselves in not making waves? Or are we saying I'm less than, or I'm not, my opinion doesn't matter because I don't want to make waves about it? So we have to be able to, and so when we're in that space of understanding who we are, and we're in that space of expressing ourselves in our life as our authentic self, then maybe it will make waves sometimes, but you can still communicate with people, you can still express yourself, you can still hold your space, and it doesn't have to be in an abrasive manner. No. Simply the confidence and simply the knowing of, here I am. Then that automatically, in many cases, will disengage you from what might become an argumentative situation, because when you're in your ego, the ego has to win. The ego has to be right, and the ego has to have that acknowledgement of who they are. Whereas your divinity or your true self says, okay, if they see it or not, doesn't matter because I know who I am. And that's really kind of a key thing. One of the things that came up about that I thought was really interesting is there's something that had gone on, and I had said something or done something, and then someone else said, so another person had done it, and I knew I had done it, and I didn't care because it wasn't worth it in a group full of a bunch of people to say, oh no, that was me, because I thought I would come across sounding, unauthentic. And what's interesting is that another mutual person that knew it was me says, no, wait, I believe Shelly was the one. And so it was wonderful to have that acknowledgement. And so it was okay. But I didn't need to have it, because I already knew for myself. And if someone else, because the other thing that's happening here, and I think this is a really key thing, is that when there are humongous transformations taking place, such as they are now, it's not just happening to Shelly. It's not just happening to the few. It's happening to billions of people all over the place. So it makes sense that more than one person is going to have the same perception or is going to have the same idea or something similar. So it's important.
And the channels, when people channel information, it's going to have a similar theme. It's going to have their own specific way. But also what's going to happen is that because we have our own individuality, our uniqueness, our own filters, information is going to come through and we're going to interpret it in different ways. And so this is what I see as part of the chaos. There's a bit of no, this is what it means, or you're right, or whatever. And I really do feel that this is part of that taking back our power, is to know, actually, this is what I believe. And we don't have to go out and convince the world. And that just really became clear to me the other day, because I've always been kind of a person that likes to share. So I learn something and I go, hey, did you hear about this? Or did you, and now I'm starting to feel more like, you know what, if they're really interested, they're going to ask me. By now, I have such a public image that if people really are interested in my point of view, which is all it would ever be, is they'll ask me. I don't have to volunteer it all the time, but I think I was always wanting to explain why I think what I think, why I, and that's the old, to me, that's the old paradigm of trying to justify ourselves, like I'm here and I think this because of this. And now it's like, it doesn't matter. This is my awareness, and I always reserve the right to change my mind, because as we explore, we learn more and more. But one of the things that came to me as you were speaking about past lives and or parallel realities, and you're saying that they don't necessarily happen at the same time, and you could be tapping into one that isn't even yours, but just to have the memory, the experience, get the wisdom maybe from it or what have you. Is it, when we have, because generations, so, I mean, it's my understanding that we could come back in our another lifetime as our children's child, or we could come back in another lifetime. So is it possible, when you're doing your past life regression or going to the Akashic record, could I have been my grandmother? Could I have, especially if we were live at the same time, but if we weren't, could I be my great grandmother? Could I have actually that be my life? Is that possible? I'm not saying.
I think it is possible, and how probable is it? I don't know how probable it is. In the work I've done with people, that's not something I see commonly, but everything is possible. We all are, we're the center of our universe. Basically, if you look at each person as the person here, and then there's a circle around them that's like their closest soul circle, and then concentric circles going out from that, you have degrees of association with many other soul individuals. And those are the ones that you incarnate with again and again and again. Those that are closest to you, you incarnate with a lot, and those that are a little bit further out will not be as often. So from the grandmother, great-grandmother down, if there is something that's important for you to know with an individual, then there may be a reason for that to come through, or it may come through as memories or something like that. I think anything is possible, and the reason, though, is why. Why would they want to do that?
Well, I was just thinking that how, with the DNA is each lifetime, if, you were your grandmother's grandmother or whatever, you'd be trying to make it better, trying to make it better each time you came back and trying to, rectify things. Perhaps, I don't know. I just...
and exactly, I think that's entirely a possibility, as I mentioned a minute ago. But I really think as our soul energies, we like diversity. We don't want to live that same strain of life again. Let's try it. Let's try a different life, or let's try something else. And maybe I'll come back and maybe I'll experience it again, because it's now, different environments and all, or maybe I'll want to reconnect to those soul families. I mean, to those soul entities that are part of my family. But I don't know, that's not something I would really put a lot of energy or thought into, because it doesn't really matter one way or the other unless it's affecting you in this lifetime.
Right. And then you can just work on healing that period where it shows up in you, and then you actually do heal it for your grandmother, and you're back and forth that way.
Exactly.
Right. Let's do that. So I've had some past life experiences where I've remembered something that happened, and it was affecting my life today. Not today, but in this lifetime, or that, and I kind of had that feeling in my body that, this doesn't have a source in this lifetime for this, whatever it is. And so, what's your, this is what sounds like to me, you're using the past life experience as part of the healing for this life, not just for curiosity's sake, because you want to find out who you were.
You know,
But
it can happen in so many different ways. One of the first experiences that I had with past life regression was I was doing a breathing, I forget what it was, breath work, way back in the 90s. And it made me laugh because I didn't know what I was getting into. But I'm one of those people like you, oh, I'll try it. Sure, I'll try anything once. And so I get there and I didn't know that they were going to be, we would all be laying down. Like here we are, a whole row of people just laying there, and they do this music and meditation and stuff. But anyway, what I really found amazing was I went immediately and I found myself walking on the trail going west. You know, in the 1820s or so, as we were starting to open up the west of the USA. For I know people all over the world may say, west of what? But anyway, I found myself on the wagon train, and I found myself in the relationship. And basically what I had realized is that the person that I was with in that lifetime was a person that's coming back into my lifetime in this lifetime. And that my heart had become very hard and bitter in that lifetime because I felt abandoned, and I felt because of just, you know, you could look at it analytically and say, I was up in the mountains in Colorado, and we got separated by snow, and I was there with small children, and I had to make it work, and all these different things.
wow.
And that made me very bitter. So what I realized from that breath work was that I needed to open up my heart, because my heart was shut down for whatever. I mean, I could tell you the reasons why in this lifetime. But then I realized, okay, this is more than just this lifetime.
Right.
This is something that's set back into that other lifetime. And after that breathwork class, I was in the airport traveling, and I saw a book that had been written, and it was my experience traveling on the wagon trains going west. And I thought, oh my God, that's me. That was my lifetime. So I got a confirmation of it in another way by having that external book. So
right.
that was one of the first times that I really connected with past life. Fast forward about 10, 15 years from that, and I had gone up to the North Georgia. I live in Georgia, and I went to the North Georgia mountains, and I felt really pulled to spend the night at this one. It was kind of a campsite because they had campers there, but they also had cabins, like a campsite cabin thing with this waterfall. And it was a little bit pricey for me, so I had said, no, I don't think I'm going to go. I'm going to stay here. Thank you anyway. I go driving around for an hour. There's no place else to stay. So I go back to that place, and I paid the money, and it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy myself here. And so I had this cute little cabin, and there was a waterfall there, and I had to climb the waterfall. So, you know, you have to be kind of careful about things like that, so I wasn't too close to it. So I climb up the waterfall, and the whole time I'm climbing the waterfall, I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I just was getting very upset and very emotional, and I was crying. I get to the top of the waterfall, and I see across the waterfall, you know, this is just that river as it's about to go down in its things. I see this young man that's a Native American, and his arm was messed up. And so I'm just looking at him, and I said, are you okay? And I knew he wasn't physically there. I mean, I was seeing him energetically. Yeah. And I said, are you okay? Is there something I can do for you? And he just looked at me with these big sorrowful eyes and turned and walked away. And I thought, oh, I just felt such heart-wrenching pain in my heart about this. So I was just sending him love, sending him compassion. And then I just sat there quietly for a while. And what happened was I began to be flooded with the images, and I saw his lifetime playing out. When he was born with his arm like that, his people had abandoned him, which is what they did at that time. He couldn't keep up. He couldn't, you know, and he was picked up by an old mountain man. So this is again in the 1800s, the early 1800s. It might have been even before that other lifetime if you're looking linear. And so here's this guy that's a mountain man. He finds this infant, and he takes him home, and he raises him. But someone who would be inclined to live in the mountains is not someone who is necessarily very verbal or necessarily shows affection. So this young boy had been raised by this man who actually, when I connected, I could feel he loved him dearly.
Yeah.
But he didn't know how to express it, didn't know how to share it. And so then society starts moving out that way. And he had met this young girl at the in the town that just was built around the area. And she was in love with him, but he would not allow himself to love her because, number one, he didn't know how to express love. He didn't know how to feel love. He didn't know how to, and he thought he was less than because of his arm.
Right.
And so all of this just washed over me as I'm sitting there, and I love the water. I love the water. I love the sound of waterfalls, and that's always many times a place that shifts my energy.
Right.
So I go. So I'm just talking there, and I'm fixing, and I'm working with him, and I just started communicating with him one-on-one, saying, you know what, you do have value. You are a special person. You can't, it's making me emotional even now to think about it. So anyway, I worked with him. Long story short, he shifted, and it was like his heart opened up, and he allowed that young girl to come in and be a part of his life. And when he did so, I saw the two of them getting together, and he had his arm around him, and they were walking away, and she looked over her shoulder at me and said, "Thank you." So here's what this was all about. That was me. I was the boy. And so I think
it's amazing that you feel, I mean, this is so powerful, Shelly. I mean, I'm so glad you're sharing this, but I could feel it from the beginning of the story, the emotions starting to come up. Beautiful.
Exactly. I think back in now you people could have two ways of looking at this. I think back in the 1800s when that first happened, they never got together in that lifetime, and that boy was just a very lonely boy, and he went the way of the trapper. I think that when I connected with him, as I did, we changed history, because I was able to work with him to heal his heart, to allow his heart to open up, so that he could accept this relationship in. And later on that night or the next day, I forget when it was, but I know at a separate time, I kind of tapped back into that energy, and he had become a part of the community. He was running like the general store, and they had several children. So you can rewrite your history by healing the problems of what that was in that lifetime. And then you can change the outcome. And then you can bring all of that energy back into you. You're healing it, going back into your divinity, into your I am presence. You're healing it, and then you can bring that into this now moment. And after that, I found myself much more, my heart was just wide open after that. So I healed that lifetime, and I healed this lifetime by opening up more.
Okay, so I'm going to get more specific on that, because, I mean, that is so powerful. And I know I have ask people before, other people, and again, this doesn't make anybody wrong. It's either, a different perspective or a broader one or whatever you might call it. But I asked somebody one time about changing the past, and they said, no, you can just observe. You're not, okay. But so when you say that happened, are you talking about a parallel reality happened that you were viewing? Are you talking about that you changed the, like if it was documented in our history books, would that in fact be different? Like if they were logging births and it was all written down, he actually got married and had all these many children, whereas before you did the work, the history book never even showed him existing because he didn't live in the community. I just feel like it's possible that maybe one reality the reality that is in the denser third dimension, maybe we can't change because it is dense and it is solid. But when you tapped in at the higher vibration, perhaps that actually changed, and that is what parallel realities is all about. How do you feel about that?
That's a great question. And honestly, me being me, I didn't need the validation of looking in the history books or looking at the records, so I never thought about that, but I just knew that it had changed. But what I do know is happening from, and this is again working with people, what I multiple potentials for everything that you're doing in your life. So did he shift into another potential, another parallel reality and live his life in that way? Probably so. Probably that's exactly what happened. But here's the thing. We have our focus right here in this lifetime right now. That individual in that lifetime had his focus that was predominantly on a path of pain, suffering, lack, less than, that's where his focus was. So when you go back in and you heal that situation and you shift that situation, it's like that lifetime that had been a predominant reality in consciousness now diminishes and becomes much less than, and the greater potential that then comes up is that of the new reality that takes place. That's kind of my take on it.
Plus, it healed you in this lifetime. That's the key. I mean, this is right. Where our consciousness is. So what you did, regardless of if it actually did change his life there, it changed your life.
Exactly. It changed my life, but I honestly think it changed his life too. I think it moved him into a completely different potential. And this is why people want to heal past lives, especially if they're having a relationship. And again, it is about the effect on this lifetime, but constantly when we're working on it, we go back to the source of what the problem is. And then you heal whatever that is. You pull it up by the roots if you need to. You send love and light. You disconnect the energy, whatever it is. But I see that what happens is like you're looking at a history book and things just fade into nothingness and disappear. So that's why, to me, you are, once it's healed or once it's resolved or you've disconnected, it no longer exists. And so now the reality is of where your focus is. And so now the what you're going to grow from when you're tapping into your divinity and letting it flow into you in your daily life is now from that place that has been healed. And so, I think that's a little bit of a judgment call. If people believe one reality versus another, if you're very analytical and methodical, you might not ever believe any of that will be the reality. And so there's, again, that no right or wrong. It's just about whatever works for the individual.
Yes, but if for people who this really resonates with, one of the things that occurs to me in that kind of work, past life work, I know we predominantly, when we do that kind of work, we're doing it for ourselves, for this life. But it does occur to me that, all the hurts and the wounds and the what have yous of our ancestors on the planet, all of those wounds, if we could in some ways go back and heal before the Irish famine and during the Irish famine that, devastated so many people, before the African people were taken as slaves to the United States, and during that period, if we could get into those historical things, maybe we actually would be changing our reality today. Or I don't know, it just feels like time traveling, that's how it feels like to me. Like we could just look back on it with love and neutrality, like you say, and no judgment. That may be what we need to because everybody's talking about world peace all the time, but we keep saying, we keep fighting for peace, which is crazy.
Well, which is why there's never peace, because everyone's focusing on the fight.
Yes.
But I think that we can go back into before the Irish famine. We can go back to before the slaves. But I think that situations that have such an impact on society, the slaves were, obviously, again, I always feel like whenever I make some of these statements, I have to qualify. I'm not making the slavery less than, because it was obviously pretty profound for all of those involved in it.
Yes.
But slavery was more than just taking the blacks from one continent to another continent and enslaving them. Slavery was also taking place on many different levels throughout the entire world. Mm-hmm. That was one way that it was focused upon. And that led to the other dynamics that took place. So So certain things like that that are so huge and so profound are probably not going to ever be totally erased. But by shifting the energy behind it, by shifting the impact that it was going to have, it can have an effect on all of those probably that are, again, that are unconscious of it. You know, if someone is focused and they're very conscious on, I was a slave, I have to heal it, I have to resolve it, then that's their life path and their intention. But there are many, many, many people that were enslaved in many different ways. Probably just about every single human at one point or another in their history has been enslaved. Yeah. Because that's a part of that human reality. So if it's something that's a big deal for them, they'll recognize where it came from. But you can go into the collective consciousness, you can go into your divinity, you can go into the Akashic records and all these different places. They're just giving you a focus to tap into it. But energy is energy, and energy is available on many different levels. And so it truly is about finding whatever direction will allow you to go there so that you can create a shift. We are making a difference in the world. I know we are. And I may be a minority right now that thinks this, but that doesn't make it less than. Meaning that in the work that we're doing by tapping into the collective consciousness and infusing it with the universal light, is all it does is it goes through and it diffuses the energy, and it gives people more of a potential of what they can tap into. I have a video that I took out of my last channel that was about the infusion of the feminine and into a template, and that template is out there and available for everyone. And that's how the changes take place. There are still people that are going to fight. There are still people that are going to have pain and suffering, because that's a part of the earthbound reality.
Yeah.
So,
but you know,
excuse me?
Well, it's something that I really feeling like you're talking about the collective consciousness and everything. This just came to me actually last night. So it's kind of synchronistic that you would talk about the enslavement of, you know, and how we've all had this experience one way or another. And it really, really occurred to me that that is part of our human experience on the planet. And it's why some people refer to the planet as the prison planet. And it's this sense of being enslaved. And what I notice, and I mean, I want to put it out there because I really feel like letting the collective consciousness recognize this, that it feels to me that we don't have the kind of slavery that is visible anymore, or not anymore, but in most parts of the world. But there is still some. But there's these other kinds of enslavement. We can be like, because there's been a lot of manipulation and control on this planet as well in different forms. So what does that enslavement mean? And how we have, because of fear, we keep, I talk about in democracies especially, we keep asking for more rules to keep us safe from each other, which actually is putting more bars on our cage. Although we feel like our cage, our enslavement is more comfortable than it was, but we're not free. We don't want to be free. Like, it's that sense of, and I'm talking collective, not individuals here, but I'm saying the ways that we've been so indoctrinated with slavery, with believing that we're not free, we can't be free. The best thing to do is make friends with our jailer and learn how to get as much as we can by being, you know, kind, being as manipulative as well too, to get and that's not true freedom. But it feels to me like that's that big theme, is that we've had so much, like you say, everybody on the planet has been in a position of being oppressed, bullied by, at some point, to the point that this is what it feels like to me, is it's become part of our belief system that we're going to have it one way or another. Let's try to make it as comfortable as possible while we give up our power. And the reason when you talk about the collective consciousness, that's the reason I wanted to bring this up, because I thought I want to put it out there so that people really can see it and then choose for themselves, which is different than this default thing that we are born into believing we are enslaved to somebody. We have to earn our way out of our prisons and so forth. Like, it just feels like so timely to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that what you say is true, and enslavement can be, as you said, in many different levels. We can be that way within our own mind. I think people's mental bodies, the thoughts and the programmings, can be horrible for people.
Yeah.
And how many people do you know that they just can't get their mind to be quiet? And so it can happen from an individual person within themselves, about themselves, to a community, to a society, to a country. You know, it can go from the smallest minute to the largest. And it is taking place, and it is something that is, just like you said, a part of the world life experience, or the earth life experience. But I think this is where our choices are coming in, and this is where our free will is coming in, and this is where the consciousness expanding coming in is having such a profound effect.
Yeah,
because more
we
and
can
more
change
people
it.
are beginning to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
No, that's not my truth. No, that's not my reality.
Yeah.
And you can express it in whatever way works for you. But the bottom line, are you just parroting words that someone else said, or are you speaking the truth from your heart?
Right. And that's just, I mean, that's the reason I wanted to bring it up. It's sort of like an awareness that it wasn't part of my real awareness until last night. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow. And it is a free will planet. So if I'm enslaved, it's because I'm choosing to be. If I don't want to be enslaved, I don't have to be. We actually have the keys. We have that power. So, that's what I think is so cool about working with you, Shelly, and being able to tap into the energies of the goddess and all the other light beings to help us to see. Like, it feels like we've been in kind of this transition period for a while now, but right now we are being supported to look at things without fear, because I could look at that whole thing and not be afraid, because I could recognize, oh, for Pete's sakes, that's what's happened, but I can choose something different. So is there anything that we have not, I mean, we definitely talked about this energy this time, parallel realities, past life, and letting people know Shelly does do this in classes. She does it in private sessions. She can work with you on all these kinds of things. So goddesslight.net if you are interested in more, and tons of stuff on the website. But is there anything for today, Shelly, that you really, or the guides and angels that are talking through you, do they want to share?
I think our message for today that we think is important for people to be able to receive at this time is to honor yourself and recognize that, number one, you're not alone. You are living on this planet with billions of people, and you can reach out for support in ways that help you to feel good. Going back to that just very basic, does it feel good or does it not? Let that be your guideline in any decision that you make. Does it feel good or does it not? And there may be times in your life when you make a decision and you realize, I don't feel too good about this, but it's a stepping stone to something else. So if you're making a choice and then you're still consciously choosing that, okay, I know this is not where I want to be long term, but I'm going to learn something from this. It'll give me the information I need so that ultimately I can be where I want to be. Then that just shifts all the energy. If someone is in a place that it may be temporary, but they're saying, oh, I don't want to be here. Why do I have to be here? Even if it's only for a week or a month, you've just deleted all of the, you've now put energy into it that's going to hold you back. So then you'll be there longer than you would have been. So the key here is to understand that whether you like it or dislike it, is important for you to use as your mechanism or as your guidepost for deciding what you want in your life. The second thing that goes right along with that is the trust and the understanding that that there is so much that's available to you, and that each individual that's choosing to create the life that they want to have, that's choosing to live a life that fills them up with love, light, and energy, you can do so in many, many different ways. Be open to the options, be open to the potentials, and listen to your inner voice, because that will not guide you wrongly.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and appreciate all of you, guides, angels, the goddess, for being here with us. I appreciate you, Shelly, for giving us your time and talents and gifts and insights. It's always exciting and to explore with you. So thanks a million.
Well, you're welcome, and I always appreciate being able to share this time with you. It's wonderful. And I just look forward to the next time we get together. Maybe we should start doing these quarterly with each of the equinox and solstice.
Yeah, that does sound, we have done a few that way. So yeah, it does sound like a planned, a synchronistic, planned, unplanned thing happening. For everyone who's watching, I encourage you to go to Shelly's website and check out her website and her things that she's offering. As I've mentioned before, goddesslight.net. She's got CDs, she's got classes, she's got online events, and she's willing to also go places to speak in person. So that's another thing. Check her out. And until next time, take care.
Bye.
Wasn't that amazing? Thank you to my guests for sharing with us today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share the link. You can join us for live shows by going to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com and listen to the replays from the show page, preview guests, and explore links to our Facebook fan page, WordPress blog, and more. We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.